Welcome to episode 52 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, we are going to be talking about the movie The Place Beyond the Pines, the movie Zombieland Double Tap. I finished the game A Boy and His Blob, and finally, we're going to quickly touch on the new Sonic trailer after the update. But first, Christian, this week we watched The Place Beyond the Pines. Now, this is a movie directed by Derek Cianfrance, and I looked him up. He doesn't have a lot of work to his name. He's done Blue Valentine and Late Between the Oceans. Who's starring this one?
A whole bunch of people. Yeah, this was a big cast. It was Ryan Gosling and Bradley Cooper mainly. And then supporting roles for Eva Mendes, Ben Mendelsohn, Rose Byrne, Mahershala Ali, Ray Liotta surprised me halfway through the movie. So yeah, it was a big cast.
Yeah, and it makes sense because really this felt like three movies combined into one.
Oh my god, I know.
And so each character more or less played a prominent role in their a more prominent role in their portion of the movie. So the first part of this, and when we started watching it, I thought this was going to be a Ryan Gosling movie and was surprised at the direction this took. What about you?
Yeah, so I vaguely remember when this movie had come out in theaters, and we didn't get it at our little theater in town here, and I was bummed out. So this was something that when I'd seen it on Netflix, I was like, oh yeah, I'll throw it in my queue and I'll watch it at some point. But from the trailer, I had assumed that this was going to be like a Cops and Robbers style Ryan Gosling's Robin Banks and Bradley Cooper's chasing him, and it was going to be like a Catch Me If You Can almost kind of situation, and it is not that.
Oh no, I think it'll make sense to talk about, I guess, what the first third of the movie is really about and break it down by synopsis. So the first part of the movie stars Ryan Gosling, who is he's kind of like a carnival daredevil where he rides a motorbike and does stunts, and it turns out that in one of the towns he stopped at, he had a kid that he did not know about. So he quits the carnival, starts working, trying to become part of his baby mama's life, who had actually moved in with another guy and wanting to be part of his kid's life, but he really couldn't provide because he didn't really have a job. So he started robbing banks, which led to a confrontation he eventually had with the police. And so let's focus on Ryan Gosling first. Did you buy him as a bad boy?
Not particularly.
No, this was the hardest problem I had while watching it. And the most apt comparison I could make is he looks like he is cosplaying an anime thug from like a high school comic or something like that, because he has, the ripped white shirt and these dumb face tattoos, but then he has this perfectly feathered blonde hair.
Yeah, he looked very out of place. And I think part of it is maybe it's because he's breaking like a typecast, because he typically is cast as like these like good guy love interest, like cute kind of thing, and yeah, they're like, well, what, we like him for this role, but what can we do to make sure he doesn't, what can we do to make sure the audience knows right away he's not that? Like, give him a face tattoo and crazy hair, like, all right, done.
Yeah, in the first 5 minutes, for the first 5 or 10 minutes, I didn't realize it was a tattoo. I thought he had a scar, which made it even worse until I got a good look up, a good close up of his face. And so he comes back into his baby mama's life, and then Mahershala Ali is actually the stepdad of his kid, which is crazy that he's like a big actor now, but this was, I imagine, one of his earlier roles.
Yeah, this was a pretty early role for a lot of people. Like, when did this come out? This was
2014, I think. I have Wikipedia up. It was 2012.
Yeah, so this came out in 2012, and I have somewhere in my notes that this is interesting to watch, because it is an early role for a lot of these people. It's definitely one of Mahershala Ali's first real parts. It's before he was in House of Cards. It's before he was in Hunger Games. It's before he was in Moonlight. This is one of Ben Mendelsohn's earlier parts. Like, he's been in a few things here and there, but like this was before Rogue One and obviously Captain Marvel. So yeah, like this was interesting to see these people kind of earlier in their careers.
Speaking of Ben Mendelsohn's character, it seems like they just made the script to be a convenience where he just sees Ryan Gosling riding the motorbike and immediately is like, "Hey man, I'll offer you a job and a place to live. I just met you literally minutes ago, but whatever, the movie demands it." And then literally the next scene he's like, "You got mad skills, man. You know how to do this, this, and this." And it's like the audience knows nothing about this. Is basically this character just telling us it's true. We have no actual concept if Ryan Gosling knows how to fix bikes.
Yeah, and they never bond on screen. I guess the movie posits that they're spending a lot of time together off screen and that their relationship is evolving kind of without us. Because really it's in like their second or third scene together and Ben Mendelsohn is like, "You know what we should rob some banks." And it's like, okay.
Literally out of nowhere, it's like either this guy's really trusting, which I'm leaning towards it's their third day, and he's like, "Look, I already gave the guy a house to live. Let's rob some banks."
Yeah, I gave him a job, I gave him a house, now we're going to do this. That's the next logical step.
Oh my gosh. Ryan Gosling's character is either a complete moron or the police in that town are complete morons because he robbed multiple banks with his black motorcycle that he just drives around town. He has no other form of transportation. He should have been caught almost immediately. He had the same MO. People were like, "Yeah, he rode away on a bike." The police have clearly checked no footage to find this guy.
Well, I had along those lines, I had somewhere in my notes here that he's driving up to Eva Mendes's house and watching her through the windows, and like he's trying to be sneaky even though he is driving the loudest vehicle in America. Like he pulls up to that house and it's like a thunderstorm, and then it's like he's driving away and it's making so much noise, and like he drove away and Mahershala Ali was like, "Well, Ryan Gosling was outside again."
How bad do you feel for Mahershala Ali's character? Because he's legitimately a good person in this movie. He is taking care of Ryan Gosling's kid. He's taking care of this girl's mom. And then Gosling comes into town for like 2 nights. She cheats on Ali, and then lets Gosling in the house. And then Gosling accosts Ali and beats him with a pipe wrench.
Yeah, that was a lot. Like, I did feel bad for his character. Like, Eva Mendes jumped into bed with him real fast.
It was so fast that I sat there and I was like, "Oh, did she dump Kofi, Mahershala Ali's character?" And then I was like, "No, she's still staying with Kofi."
Yeah, she's
It's
still
just like,
living in
wait,
his house.
what? Still living in his house, going to church with her mom and him. Like, it was ridiculous. All because they had like ice cream. My biggest point was she's like, "I want this guy. I want Ryan Gosling in my kid's life," and it's like, sure, you guys had one good day getting ice cream together. But where was he the first year of your kid's life doing all the actual work of parenting? And you're going to cheat on Kofi like that, who's presumably been there for all that. I thought it was ridiculous. I did not buy it, especially because it seems like later in the movie, her and Kofi have a legitimate relationship because they have another daughter, and he seems like a really good dad to Gosling's kid, which I have problems with how some of the things are taken later on, but it just made no sense to me, some of the choices they made on this.
Yeah, so I think my big problem with that choice is it's meaningless. Like the fact that she cheats on him with Ryan Gosling doesn't go anywhere. So why include it at all? It's not like it's not like Mahershala Ali comes home and finds out about it and then leaves or anything. It's just it's never brought up again, and it's completely ignored for the rest of the movie. They could have literally cut that scene out and it would have been fine.
Right. They could have just had ice cream. I think they're trying to make it seem like Gosling's super charismatic and like a ladies' man, but he does not come off that way at all.
Oh no. Speaking of things that don't make any sense, why did Ben Mendelsohn go and like cut his bike up?
Right? I the best I could think of it was I guess they were friends and he's like, this is for Ryan Gosling's best interest. I'm going to destroy his bike. Or he was trying to protect himself if Gosling got caught. But Ryan Gosling then just threatens to murder him and he gives him 2 grand. And that's like it.
Yeah, but then later when they go back, Ben Mendelsohn is like, "Your dad was my best friend, and I still have all of his stuff." Like, he stuck a gun in your mouth, man.
Yeah, why keep all of his crap for 15 years?
Oh, check this out. These are his like crappy plastic sunglasses. They've been here this whole time.
It feels like that was supposed to be like the third part in a multiple like hour-long movies. Like this movie was supposed to have way more with Gosling and Mendelsohn's character that just never made it, because that was another jarring part when they were like glorifying Gosling's character. Like he basically just seems like a bum in this movie. I don't know why everyone liked him so much or why his mom had such a hard time being like, no man, your dad was a white trash criminal who got shot while robbing a bank. This dude could have Googled his dad at any time and found his information out.
So I guess we'll get to the Act One like situation change where all of a sudden, bam, it's a new movie.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I will let you lead on that.
So Ryan Gosling decides to do this like daring double bank robbery, gets caught immediately, and then at minute 52 we're introduced to Bradley Cooper's character, who has not been in the movie thus far. And he is the cop that catches and then immediately kills Ryan Gosling in like a mini shootout situation.
In a point of like I think importance was he shot on Gosling and Gosling did not have a gun because they tried to make that a big deal and then sweep that under the rug.
Yeah. So then for the next like hour and 15 minutes, this movie has almost nothing to do with Ryan Gosling and instead becomes a movie about how all of Bradley Cooper's cop buddies are dirty cops who are stealing the money that Ryan Gosling stole from the banks.
Do you know what this movie this turn right here reminded me of was an episode of Law and Order where the first half of the episode is about like catching a criminal and then the second half is about having them go through the judicial process. Like this was such a drastic change that it was like, this is the story of a criminal, this is the story of corrupt cops. Like it was insane.
Yeah, like it was so disjointed. Like I said, I was expecting this to be a like Catch Me If You Can, Ryan Gosling, Robin Banks, Bradley Cooper, like one step behind him the whole way, and instead he catches him immediately, shoots him, and then the movie kind of forgets about him for a while.
Yeah, it has this weird commentary about corrupt cops, and then Cooper's character eventually becomes like the hero DA. But like one of the weirdest scenes was when he went to the DA's office and he's like, "I will turn on all these cops if you give me a job." And the current DA is like, "No way will I ever do that." He's like, "Well, I won't testify." He's like, "Fine, but I will never talk to you." And it's like, I don't think that's how DAs really work. I mean, I have a little bit of experience with them. I don't think that's how it will go down.
And like, I don't have much to say about this middle section. Like, it was the longest section of the movie, and I was kind of checked out for most of it. I didn't really care for any of it. Ray Liotta shows up, and he's like the ringleader of this gang of dirty cops, and they all just suck as people. And then they all just get thrown in jail, and I was like, well, all right. That was again, completely pointless.
This third part of the movie focuses on Ryan Gosling's son and Bradley Cooper's son, who are the same age. But you could have completely removed the second part of this movie about like the corrupt cops and just had Bradley Cooper, hero cop. That's why he's running for DA. Like the second part of this movie was useless.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we should say between parts 2 and 3, there's a 15-year time jump. Like
when no one ages.
Oh yeah, when they're locking up all the corrupt cops. I was like, all right, movie's over. And then it does the 15 years later, like, title card. And I was like, I audibly groaned.
Yeah. I swear, Christian, the writers were like, look, we to get the original idea was to have it 15 years later, and like, well, how do we get Cooper to be running for a district attorney? We need something that makes sense. And then they wrote a whole like 40-minute subplot on it.
But I mean, you're right. He was the cop that took down, like, even if it was just out of like being in the right place at the right time, he is the cop that took down this bank robber that had been terrorizing the town for a couple of weeks. That could have easily just been his jumping off point, like, it does like 15 years later, and there's like a tiny montage about Bradley Cooper rising through the ranks and becoming DA. Like, you solve that continuity issue in like 2 minutes. There was no reason
Right.
to write a 45-minute dirty cop story.
And you keep your movie under 2 hours and 20 minutes, which I
It's
thought was
so
way
long.
too long for this movie. So the third part, man, Bradley Cooper. So their sons are like a little bit different. Bradley Cooper's son is completely out of control, and Ryan Gosling's son seems to be a pretty good kid. They're both into drugs, but my God, Bradley's Cooper's son is so annoying. Why does this kid speak with like a Boston mob accent the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, the movie's set in upstate New York, so maybe because at this point, Bradley Cooper and Rose Byrne, I guess, are divorced. I should say Rose Byrne is the only character in this movie who I liked. Everyone else I found incredibly, like, annoying. I guess I did like Mahershala Ali, but it was mostly just Rose Byrne.
Those are the only two people who have were not just like crap human
Yeah,
beings.
like the Ray Liotta and the gang are sitting there at dinner talking about it, like how amazing Bradley Cooper is, and how like they need him to come do work for them, and Rose Byrne is just sitting there like giving them all the stink eye and like, oh yeah, she knows what's up.
Yeah, my favorite line is like the guy is like, "You got to shoot someone in your first months, and he was white. You won the jackpot." And it's just like, man, these cops are they're the
Yeah, it
worst.
was pretty rough.
Um, what? So the kids grow up, they become friends, they're bad influences, and they come to a head or whatever. But one thing that I just thought was ridiculous is Bradley Cooper's son gets Gosling's son to go get him a bottle of OxyContin for a party. And it's like, okay, he owed him money or whatever, allegedly. I don't think he really did because Gosling's son or Cooper's son got them arrested. But he gets all this OxyContin and he takes it to a party, and this dude just starts handing out OxyContin like M&Ms. Like, no one would do that at a party again. Like, you don't have very much of that. And he's like, everyone take some Oxy.
And like this movie, all the criminals are real stupid, right? Like Ryan Gosling's kid, his whole plan to get that bottle of Oxy is just to wait until the pharmacist is busy waiting on somebody, and he just lets himself back behind the counter, and he's it's like he's browsing at the grocery store, and then he stands there, oh, run, and he runs and jumps on his bike and like barely gets away, and
Oh, dude, the pharmacist had wheels. He almost got up to him on the bike.
and I mean, I guess like father like son, because Ryan Gosling and Ben Mendelsohn go through this big like it's like a 5-6 minute scene where Ben Mendelsohn's walking him through like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this when you rob this bank, and Ryan Gosling goes in and he's like, I'm gonna wing it, and does none of the things that they discussed.
Yeah, they're like, you gotta go in quiet, not flash a gun. Seek the most scared looking person in whole. He like runs in, starts screaming, dancing on the countertops. So, oh my gosh. And we alluded to this earlier. Gosling's characters start coming back into this, like Mendelssohn, when Gosling's son finds out about him, and everyone has nothing but really glowing things to say about, except this kid's mom, who will not say anything, and Mahershala Ali's character, who's like, you got to ask your mom. Mahershala Ali seems like a legitimately good dad. Like, he sees his stepsons having problems. He goes and has ice cream with them. There's like a heart to heart. And then Gosling's son eventually just turns psychotic because his dad was killed by a cop while committing a robbery while holding hostages.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Made
bananas.
no sense.
Like,
Like, that kid seemed pretty well put together, and then he's like, "This is so unjust," and just flipped like a switch.
Yeah, then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go get a gun. I'm gonna threaten Bradley Cooper's son. Then I'm gonna kidnap Bradley Cooper, drive into the woods, rob him, leave him there, and then just run away from home.
Right. Like, I can understand him being mad at Bradley Cooper for shooting his dad, but nothing in this indicated that he would react in a way that he would try and kill the cop who killed his dad who was committing a crime. Like, he wasn't from, like, a crime family. Like, he seems like he's from a pretty good home.
Yeah, no, very little of this made sense at the end.
I feel like they were like, well, we have to get this point across, but then they wrote stuff to make it seem more realistic, and then they're like, well, we got to put it in here. It's like when you play a video game where you get choices, but regardless of what choices you make, you veer right into the path they need you to continue the game, though. Okay, Christian. Sorry, before we wrap up, do you want to say anything else about this?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, do you know how this movie did at the box office?
Yeah, its budget was 15 million. The box office was 47 million. So I mean, it made its money back 3 times over. I would imagine most of that was just probably in star power.
Yeah. And so also Rotten Tomatoes, critics have this at an 80% and the audience 75%. So let's segue into that. Do you agree with that, and would you recommend this movie?
Emphatically no on both counts. I would put this at like maybe a 30%. Like, this was interesting at the beginning, and then on the first like complete plot reversal, I was still kind of interested, and after the 15-year time jump, I was just angry. Like, I wanted it to be over. It was painful for me to make it the entire way through this.
I'm a little bit higher on this movie than you. I'd probably put in like the 50% range. Like, I think it's okay. I don't think I would watch it again. It is just way too long with a 2 hour and 20-minute runtime. I think if you just watch part 1 and part 3, you're fine. You're sitting at like an hour and a half. That's a fine movie. Uh, I have a hard time recommending this one unless you really just want kind of a slow moving movie. I will say it is shot very well.
I want to agree with that, but I think it overindulges. Like, you had said, you didn't know about, if Ryan Gosling's tattoo was a tattoo or a scar because you couldn't get a good look at his face for a little while. Like, you don't see his face for the first like 5 minutes of the movie because the camera is just at his back as he walks dramatically through the circus. Like that, it made a meal out of all of those scenes, and I feel like too much so.
See, I actually really liked that scene I like the opening scene of him walking out. But you're right. They do overstay their welcome at some points. I remember at the end when the kid was riding away he found his dad's bike. They literally filmed him like going from the barn to vanishing in the horizon. And I was like, all right, this is going way too long. But no, I would have a hard time recommending this one. I would lean towards saying no.
Yeah.
All right, and this week, Christian and I both watched the somewhat newly released Zombieland Double Tap. Christian, were you a fan of the first Zombieland?
I'm a huge fan of the first Zombieland.
Yeah, I really like the first one as well. This is directed by Ruben Fleischer, who did the first one. He did Gangster Squad, which I actually think is a little bit underrated. I really like that
also
movie.
Ryan Gosling.
And yeah, and Venom.
Yeah.
Last year, I think Venom came out. And it stars pretty much the same cast: Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, Abigail Breslin, and I think to a lesser extent Zoe Deutsch or Dutch. I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name.
Yeah, I've always said Deutsch.
So what? So did you like this one?
I did. It holds up. It's not as good as the first one, but I don't think I ever really expected it to be. Like, the first one is just above and beyond. But this was a pretty good approximation for a sequel. Like, I was really happy with it.
Yeah, so I really like the first one, and I think the first one hit at a right time before there was peak zombie saturation. So the first one came out in 2009. When 2009 was happening, Call of Duty Zombies was big. Left 4 Dead was big, but Left 4 Dead 2 wasn't out yet. And shows like The Walking Dead had not yet started filming to really saturate the market. And then, you eventually get other movies like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Warm Bodies and all that, where I think people got zombie fatigue. So I think Zombieland was like a fresh take before there were so many different takes on the zombie genre. So that's why I think it hits so well. And like you said, this movie is, I don't want to say it's a rehash of the first one, but it is very much in the same vein of the first
Yeah,
one.
there's enough new stuff to make it feel fresh, but there's enough callbacks that you can kind of slide easily back into the world. Like they dip back in with the rules right away, and you get callbacks to like Zombie Kill of the Week and Zombie Kill of the Year, and so it was a nice even flow for continuity and even just thematic continuity. But yeah, like I said, they introduced enough new aspects that it still felt fresh. It didn't feel like they were just remaking the first one again.
Right. And I do like so how they address that 10 years has actually passed since the first movie and this movie. It's 10 years in their time as well. And so the premise of this one is the group of four go and basically live in the White House
Yep.
for a decade after taking it back. And then Abigail Breslin's character grows up and really wants to strike out on her own and meet some new people. Woody Harrelson's kind of an overbearing father, and then Jesse Eisenberg and Emma Stone have like a subplot of her fearing commitment. And so Stone and Breslin's character run away. Breslin ends up ditching Stone's character, so then they go on basically a quest to find her down in Graceland.
Yeah, and in that intervening time, they meet up with Zoe Deutsch's character Madison, who has been living in the freezer of a Pinkberry for a decade.
Yeah, so I want to address Deutsch's character because I was surprised that I liked this movie as much as I did, because a lot of reviews I read were just panning this movie for having like 2009 humor and saying it treated women like objects and all that stuff. And I think a lot of that was directed at Deutsch's character, who, I mean, I guess I feel bad saying this, but I didn't mind her. I thought she was actually pretty funny for the scene she
2009
was
humor
in.
is great.
I agree, man.
I did not care so much for Zoe Deutsch's character. The people I watched it with really liked her, and I've come around on her since I watched it. I've warmed up to her a little bit, but even as I was watching it and not really enjoying her that much, I genuinely thought she had the best line of the movie. Towards the end, where they're going through the plan and they say, we have something they don't have, and she says guns. After they've spent the past like 15 minutes establishing they didn't have it, guns, and Woody Harrelson says, "No, we don't have guns," and she just goes, "What?" Like, that was honestly, I think that's the line I laughed the most at, besides the Bill Murray stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that. But I thought she was a good juxtaposition to all like the other characters who were not overly serious, but like they're way more
Yeah.
realistic and grim. And she was just like, we'll let the world take it how it is, and was humorous. I also saw a lot of people complain, not a lot, but I saw people complain that they used her basically as an object to have sex with. But I feel like when she had sex with Eisenberg, she had a legitimate reason. She's like, I haven't seen another man for 10 years. Like, I feel like saying she's only used as an object. She was the one who initiated it, and women have sexual urges as well. Like, I don't know. So I didn't buy into
Yeah, I
that
mean,
as much.
I saw her just as a foil for Emma Stone's character, who was, like you said, like, she has the fear of commitment,
Right.
whereas Zoe Deutsch is just like, I'm gonna jump into whatever, like, and it, like, what'll be will be, and so it was just the difference in personality.
Yeah, I thought it worked well, especially Harrelson hating her so much. Like, I thought that
Yeah,
was great.
it was a fun dynamic.
Uh, Another part of the movie I thought was awesome and I was not expecting was the cameo by Luke Wilson and Thomas Middleditch is essentially the bizarro Woody Harrelson and
I
Eisenberg.
do not like Thomas Middleditch. Yeah, like I
Really?
was really hoping he wasn't gonna be in this very much. I mean, not as a character. Like, I don't care for him kind of in general. Just I don't usually think he's very funny, but they did a pretty good job in this one.
Yeah, I just love that they're like the weird group of them, but then then they die because they refuse to ask for help.
Yeah, the like the Graceland Hotel fight scene, that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I did not. I thought the scenes in Graceland were pretty good as well, especially him wearing Elvis's blue suede shoes, and Harrelson just being so angry that he could not fit his feet into them.
Um, what did you think of the like Babylon commune?
I can't believe that they survived as long as they did. Honestly, I don't understand how they built that area. There must have been no zombies around if they refused to kill because they put a lot of truck trailers around that building. Like that took a considerable amount of time to build that fortress. And also, why melt the guns? Like when they went in there, they should just store their guns outside,
Yeah,
not melted all of them.
melted them down into whatever like peace sign necklaces.
Yeah. So we kind of mentioned this before. What did you think of the end credit scene with Bill
Fantastic.
Murray?
I loved that they had a couple Bill Murray call outs throughout because Rosario Dawson's character says something like, "Oh, I almost murrayed you," and it's like, I almost killed you because I mistook you for a zombie," and like I heard that's how Bill Murray died, and Jesse
Right.
Eisenberg's like, "Oh, I don't know anything about that."
That was so good. And then the fact that he's like, "Look, I'm sorry we did it. Here's an interview from when it broke out." It's Bill Murray doing a fake interview for Garfield 3, and then it just leads to him killing zombies with chairs and stuff, and it's in classic Bill Murray fashion where he's very nonchalant about everything.
Yeah, I was
It's
not
so
expecting that. That was
good.
very fun. Just the the line where they're like, "Why would you make a third Garfield?" And he's like, "Off the record, drugs cost money." Just absolutely classic Bill Murray, like you said, just nonchalant, deadpan. Like, I'm just gonna deliver these lines.
You know they did not give him a script either. Like he was just doing all that ad-libbed and making
And
everyone react
they were all
to
like
him.
pretty famous people that he was in there with. Like that was like almost a legit press junket. Like he was in there getting interviewed by Al Roker. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Um, I will say there was one thing that I was disappointed in this movie, and it wasn't something that I was disappointed in the moment, but when I looked back, I realized it was missing. They don't mention Twinkies a single time.
Oh man, I did not actually realize that either
Because I
till you
went
just
back
said
and I
that.
watched the original after I watched this one. I watched the original earlier this week, and like Twinkies is like a major driving subplot in the first one. It's Tallahassee's whole motivation, and yeah,
Yeah.
they I was surprised. That was the one callback I expected, and they didn't give it to you.
Yeah, it is disappointing. So you also, before we move on, you had mentioned your favorite line was "We have guns." My favorite line was they told him that the Harrelson's character that it's time to nut up or shut up was so 2009, so it changed it to "Let's kick some dicks."
I forgot about that.
That was by far my favorite. And they're like, it just doesn't have to rhyme. But I was like, no, that is the line you
Let's kick
go
some
with.
dicks. The other thing that I found fun for a moment, but it went on way too long, was Jesse Eisenberg and Thomas Middleditch comparing their rules and commandments. It went on
Oh
just like a
yeah,
couple
yeah.
beats too long. I was like, okay, this was fun, but I'm done with it now.
So the budget on this one was between 42 and 48 million, and its box office so far has been 102.6 million. So it's definitely made its money back. Christian, do you know how it's doing with
Yeah,
the
it's doing pretty
critics?
well. I mean, critics didn't like it so much. They gave it a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's about what I would expect for a movie like this. Not going to win any Academy Awards. Audience put it at an 89. That's probably where I would put it.
Yeah, I agree. I'd put this in like the 80s. I thought it was
The
fine.
box office, at least in our
Um,
theater, I was disappointed. Yeah, like it's already
Really?
gone from our theater. Like this was the last week for it, and
Hmm.
I guess I just expected it to be, I expected it to be more. Although, like, I'm looking at the box office for the original, and the domestic was 75 million. Worldwide, it was 102 million. So, I mean, it's exactly on par. Like the box office for this one was 102.6. The box office for the original was 102.3. So, it's almost exactly the same. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering it because it was 10 years ago, but it felt like the first one was a much bigger phenomenon than this one was.
Yeah, well, I guess when we saw it before too, like I don't know, I don't hang around as many people as I used to, so I think when I was in
Yeah, that's
college,
fair.
people were talking about it, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I think it's a good movie. I think it really stays true to the roots of the film, even if it is not, like you said, as fresh as the first one. I think it's still a good. Like if you like the
Oh
first
yeah,
one,
absolutely.
you're
Like I
going to
said,
like
I
this
I
one.
definitely agree that I would put it in an 89 or 90%. I definitely recommend it. All right, and now you said you were able to finish the game A Boy and His Blob, which was developed by Way Forward Technologies. What is this? I've legitimately never even heard of this.
Right. So, A Boy and His Blob is actually a I don't want to say a remake. It's like a reimagining of a NES game called A Boy and His Blob, but obviously with much better graphics and a little bit different gameplay in that one. You obviously had two buttons, but it's basically a puzzle platformer. You play as a little boy who lives in a treehouse. And one night, an alien lands near his house, and it turns out it's this blob that when you feed him jelly beans, he turns into items that helps you solve puzzle platforming. So this game was originally released in 2009 on the Wii. I actually played it through PlayStation Now
How is that running
streaming.
on the streaming platform?
It worked surprisingly well, honestly. I've not used PS Now before. It had a 7-day free trial, and then I did not cancel it in time, so they charged me for a month. So,
That's exactly what happened to me with Disney
unfortunately,
Plus.
but yeah. So it ran well. I was surprised. I'm very resistant and hesitant to say streaming is the future of video games, at least in the next 10 years, just because of data caps and things like that. But this is not a very technically powerful game. It's like an indie game. I did have stutters every once in a while where it would completely freeze up and it would take a couple seconds to catch up. But for the most part, I played for probably between 10 and 15 hours. It happened, I'd say, no more than
Now,
seven or eight
in a
times.
game like this, though, would it freezing up like that? That doesn't really affect your gameplay at all. Like you're not going to get killed in that like 30-second lag time.
For the most part, no. There are enemies in this game that you do have to navigate around. So unless you're in front of one of the charging ones, if it freezes up, as long as you just stop moving the controller, you'll be fine. Which is why I was okay with it in this one. But if you're playing like a fighting game or an FPS, I don't know how that'll work out in your favor. That's so I'm really curious to see where all this goes, especially with the Google Stadia coming out this week. But I think that's maybe a topic for next week once it's been out for a week and we see
Yeah.
some more people talk about it. So, like I said, this is a puzzle platformer, and the first thing that I noticed about this game is it has a beautiful art style. It looks like you're playing a children's book. The art style on this is just adorable, and it is by far the best thing this game has going for it. It's worth checking out the first level, couple levels or so, just to see how good a game can look on like older technology, especially Wii, because sometimes you don't see companies stylize in this way. And there's just a button where they have a button completely dedicated to hugging the blob. Like the blob and the boy are very good friends. It's a very,
Yeah, I'm
I
looking at
think, kid
screenshots
friendly
of it
game.
here on Google, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and so it is. My biggest problem with this game is I feel like it overstays its welcome. Like if every level in this game was about 75% of what it was, I would have really liked this game. So how it's set up are there four different worlds with 10 levels in each world, and within each of those levels you can find three treasure chests. If you find all three, you then unlock a challenge level for that game. And so there are a total of 80 levels, and I just felt like some
Hmm.
of them really dragged on.
Are they like themed? Do they
Um,
have are they distinct, or is it just like one long drag?
They are distinct, and I will say they do a good job of clearly delineating what world you are in, and then the powers themselves, you get newer ones as you go through the different worlds, and that's cool because you always have a rotating list of powers, so you're not always doing the same thing. So there's the forest world, which as you go through the forest world, it becomes creepier and more decrepit as you approach the bosses. There's a cave world, same thing, where it starts out you're kind of in a city in a subway system, and then you slowly go deeper. The third world is the Blob's homeworld, and it starts out very cute, and again gets very decrepit. And then the last world is just the Citadel. It's like the boss's castle where he hangs out, and it's just like a foreboding thing where he's capturing all of the Blob's families, and they all look very good. One thing that I really did not like about this game are the bosses. They take very specific sets of powers to beat with a little bit of precise timing. That's annoying. Where if you mess up, you're just going to die. There's no way you can stop yourself
So,
from doing it.
all right, well, how is that handled then? When when you get a game over, or what, how is it handled when your character dies?
So for the normal levels, death is handled, I think, fine. Like they have automatic saves throughout, and so that's not a problem. So if you die, you just restart, usually at the start of the puzzle. It gets annoying if you miss a treasure chest and you can't backtrack, so then you have to restart the whole level just to get one treasure chest. But for the most part, it's fine as long as you're paying attention. On the challenge levels, you have to get through them without dying. If you die, you restart. And usually those levels are pretty short and they're manageable. But there were two levels that were the bane of my playthrough that I swear I spent 45 minutes to an hour on each one of them. One of them was you have to guide a rocket, which is just precision that this game did not have, and I was so happy to finally do it. And the other one was I thought you had to do these blind jumps, and it was so frustrating because the maps on this are pretty long. So I was just trying to guess where like something I threw and needed to land on would be, and you'd miss it by like a frame, and it was so frustrating. I eventually looked it up. There's one of the buttons on the controller will take you to where the blob is if you turn them into an object, so you can see where actually you need to jump, but the game never tells you that. And when you're first learning the game and you're hitting all the buttons, you hit that, the blob's always next to you. Like you don't realize that. So I spent so long on that, on something that like I could have remedied it
Yeah, that's
immediately.
too
So
bad.
that was
I've seen that
frustrating.
complaint a couple of times. Not that specifically, but just that the game doesn't take time to teach you all of its own mechanics, and so you're just kind of left kind of floundering in certain points.
Yes. So overall, this game was okay. Like I said, the art style's great. If you just play like the first world, I think you get a feel for it, and you're like, okay, this seems like a cool game. And if you really like it, you can continue on. If you don't, you should stop because it starts to overstay its welcome. Like I said, I just feel like maybe three worlds would have been good, or if they cut a level or two from it, it would have been good. The boss battles were so frustrating because some of them needed more precision than you really have in this game. Um, and my biggest annoyance was I didn't realize this when I started it. There's no platinum in this game, and it's a game that there definitely should be a platinum. It doesn't make sense why it's
Hmm.
just 100%. So that was also annoying. I just felt like this was a tedious game, which took away from its fun. And overall, I think I would put this game in like a C. It's pretty
Yeah.
mediocre, other than its art style.
So it's something decent to get on that streaming
All right.
platform because it's free.
Right. So if you have PS Now or some other streaming, I don't know if it's on Xbox Game Pass or not, but it's like a cool thing if you're just wanting to mess around for like an hour. Yeah, I think it's a game worth checking out, but I would not suggest buying it. All right, and quickly before we wrap up, Christian, the new Sonic trailer was released with the redesigned Sonic after the fiasco, which was the original design. We really razzed on Sega in an episode about it.
So
What did you think of the
I'd
redesign?
I guess I'd been away from it for long enough that I looked at the redesign and I thought to myself, what changed?
Really?
Like, well, yeah. I mean, like I said, I guess I just hadn't looked at the original in a while, and so I was sitting there going like, yeah. I mean, it looks all right. I'm like, but what did they do? And then I saw a side by side with the other one. And I was like, oh my god, I forgot how bad it was.
Right, like the original design was like so bad.
Yeah, like they like cartooned it up. I think is they took away a lot of what I think they were shooting for, like a weirdly photorealistic mutant hedgehog, which is just bananas. Like, so yeah, it seemed like they cartooned it up a little bit, and that in and of itself, I think, softened everything up once it was no longer like supposed to be like the human teeth. That was very upsetting.
Looking at the side by side, the first one looks like someone dressed in a very bad Sonic costume at like
Yeah.
Comic-Con or something, and the new one, like you said, is looks like the cartoon character. And I got to give them credit. They spent a lot of money on this redesign, and it was the right choice. Like, I might actually go see this movie now.
Oh yeah, like it shot the budget through the roof.
Yeah, I think people are like, the internet's happy with it though. Like, they're now getting praise for listening to consumers on it. I think an underrated thing, the first trailer for some reason chose Gangster's Paradise as its song. I think the new trailer uses a mix of songs that make a lot more sense for this movie.
That was another real weird choice.
Also, the trailer actually has Sonic kind of being funny instead of just weird, so I thought that was a good choice.
Yeah, which is good because the voice is Ben Schwartz, who plays John Ralphio on Parks and Rec, who is genuinely very funny. So I'm actually, yeah, I'm looking forward to this now because I love Ben Schwartz. I would love to see him be like a goofball hedgehog.
Yeah, this went from a very hard pass to me to like, I actually might go see this on like a $5 Tuesday now.
Yeah, I mean this was never a pass for me. It was before, it was just like, I can't wait to see how terrible this is.
We're going to, dude, in a year we're going to get like Twitter campaigns for like release the original cut.
Yeah, no kidding. I think my favorite take has been that this combined with the Detective Pikachu is the beginning of the Super Smash Brothers extended universe.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
So I saw a couple people on Twitter calling for a remake of a Super Mario Brothers movie.
No, we are going to have those guys, like those same guys in it. Mario and Luigi Mario.
Oh Lord.
Alright guys, and now it's time for our Amazon review game. Just a quick recap, Christian is going to read me a 5-star review for a movie from Amazon. I will get 2 yes or no questions to try and guess what the movie is. I can then ask for another review, I can ask 2 more questions, and I can ask for a third review, 2 more questions, and then I have to guess. If I get it on the first try, I get 3 points, 2 points for second, 1 point for third. I am ready when you are, Christian.
All right. This first review is called Timeless Classic, Still Scary as Hell. A classic thriller with an all-star cast. What more needs to be said for true greatness? This one scared the pants off a lot of people when it was released. I'd seen 2001 and Full Metal Jacket 2, liked them both. I'm not a film critic, but I'd think Stanley and company know their stuff.
Is this based off a Stephen King book?
Yes.
Does it star Jack Nicholson?
Yes.
Is this The Shining?
It is. Oh,
Ooh.
man. I thought I had a vague one there for you.
I did know Stanley Kubrick did stuff. Kind of. I never actually saw The Shining. I I
I
read the
watched
book and I thought it was kind of slow.
I watched it once 11 years ago. I just picked it because Doctor Sleep is out
Doctor
now,
Sleep.
which is the sequel.
All right, before we head out, Christian, what are you going to be checking out this week?
There are 3 movies coming out this week, and I want to see them all. I think there's more coming out, but we're only getting 3. Frozen 2 comes out, which I'm like more amped up for than I really have any right to be. I'm super pumped. I love the first one so much. Knives Out comes out this weekend, which has a huge ensemble cast, which I'm really looking forward to. It looks like Clue kind of updated, maybe. And also Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is the Mr. Rogers biopic starring Tom Hanks. That one's probably the third. It's probably the number 3 on my list for what's coming out this week that I want to see. But so we'll see. It's coming into holiday season, so I don't know what I'll have time for. But that's what's coming out this week. I definitely want to see them all. I definitely am also keeping up to date on the Dark Materials series on HBO. It's hooked me pretty good.
So I actually have a couple follow-up questions now. So did you see the Mr. Rogers documentary
Yes.
from like last year? Yeah, that was really good. I'm hoping that the Won't You Be My Neighbors at least as good as that.
Yeah.
I too will be seeing Knives Out, but I think we're waiting till Thanksgiving to see it. And then I've watched the first episode of Dark Materials and it didn't hook me. Is the second episode better?
See, the first episode did hook me. I really like James McAvoy. I guess I remember just enough about the Golden Compass movie to kind of remember where it's going. So maybe that's why I'm like more invested in it. Because that's how I felt about Watchmen. I tried the first 2 episodes of Watchmen and I can't get into it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try the second episode of Dark Materials once I just get time. Watchmen's getting awesome, man. The episode last night was great. I am loving Watchmen, but I can see like that's more of like I read the comics and stuff, so it's like I think that maybe is part of the reason why I like it so much.
Yeah.
So this week I am playing. Well, I'm playing one game for sure, and then I'm kind of dabbling in a couple other things. I'm going to give a shout out to Star Wars, the Jedi: The Fallen Order, the new game from EA. It is so good, man. I got it Friday, and if I did not have to go do stuff Saturday, I probably would have played it for like 20 hours this weekend. It's so fun. I'm going to definitely talk about it on the show. At the very least, I'm probably going to have it beaten by the next time we record. I'm hoping to maybe have it platinum. Like, it's so fun. It's like the first good single player Star Wars game in a really long time.
I've heard nothing but good things about it.
I got it on sale on its first day. Like normally they're $60, but for whatever reason Walmart had them for 50. So I was like, I'm picking this up.
Nice.
And it's weird. I wasn't going to at all on this game, except then the reviews came out, said it was kind of like Dark Souls. It's by Respawn, who did Titanfall 2, which I loved, and they did Apex Legends, which I wasn't as high on, but it was still a pretty cool game. So they've had a very good year. Also, was released on Friday, Pokemon Sword and Shield. I bought that and played it for like an hour, and then Jedi Fallen Order took over my time. But I'm going to be dabbling in Pokemon Sword and Shield. The first hour, what can I say? It's a Pokemon game. It's like what you expect, but it's pretty cool on the Switch. But Pokemon has a lot of its own issues right now on social media. I also picked up Medieval, which is like a remake of a PS1 game that looks pretty good. So I probably won't be playing that for a couple weeks, though.
Pokemon games, it is an interesting phenomenon where it's like, it's just the same game over and over again, right? Like it's, travel to these 10 gyms, get these badges, fight the elite, however many, and fight team evil people along the way. And so it's just the same game over and over again, and with each generation it is literally the same game, just released side by side with itself, just with like one different tweak in it, and it remains incredibly successful. Like I don't know that I can think of another like franchise where they're just like, you know what? We're just gonna put out the same homework over and over again and change the numbers a little bit, and people just keep buying it.
When I talk about it more, we will get way more into that because yes, I agree with you. But I get so into Pokemon at one point. We'll talk about the mechanics and stuff. But I did not realize this till I was randomly browsing. Did you know Pokemon is the most valuable franchise like in the world? Like if you combine Disney and Marvel and all that stuff together, like sure those are more, but it's a more valuable franchise than like Star Wars.
Yeah, you know, I didn't know that, but I'm not shocked to hear it.
Yeah, it's crazy big when you say they reuse it like they do, and they make a lot of money off of it.
Yeah, like all those main series games are just they're just the same.
Yeah, and then finally tomorrow I'm going to see Last Christmas, which I was not excited for, but I'm hearing there might be a twist or something, so now I'm more excited for it just to see.
Oh yes. I know, yeah. I know what the plot and the twist is, and it's wild. Like I did not care to see it until my buddy told me like what happened, and I was like, oh no, I feel like I have to now.
My wife, before we saw the movie, kept trying to tell me that this movie was about something or other that she saw on BuzzFeed, and I was like, no, like I saw the previews, like that's totally not it. And now it's like it might be the twist she was talking about. I'm like, I kind of got to see it just to see if she was right, because she's very rarely right on these things. And I was like, you are so wrong on this, and I might have to eat my words.
Oh man, yeah, I'm excited. I'll make sure I watch it for next week so we can talk about it.
All right, guys, thanks for listening to our episode. If you would like to contact us, we're at Gambots Network on Twitter, or you can email us at gambots.blog@gmail.com. If you have a suggestion for our Amazon review game, please submit it that way, and we will most likely use it. Otherwise, if you're listening to somewhere that you can like or subscribe, we'd appreciate it. It would help us with, I guess, algorithms and all that stuff. Otherwise, thanks for checking out the episode, guys.
Thank you.